Great. Well, we'd like to welcome everybody that's on the live stream right now. Before we begin our program this evening, maybe I can give everybody a little bit of an update as to what B'nai B'rith has done this week, which was spectacular. Michael Mostyn and I had an opportunity to plan out a community event that involved some of the leaders in our province, locally and federally, and we had an outstanding event. We had the Solicitor General of the province of Ontario, Michael Kersner, who attended our community chat, which was an update for the Jewish community to help them feel a little bit better, a little bit more secure based on what our government is doing and our police are doing at this time. It was called Keeping Our Community Safe in Uncertain Times. And that took place on Tuesday, November 14th at the Beth Avraham Yosef Synagogue in Thornhill, where we have the largest Jewish population in Canada, in York Region. So along with our Solicitor General, we had Melissa Lantzman. Melissa is a federal member of Parliament. She is also the deputy leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. She's a wonderful speaker, great on her feet, and certainly stands up for our community. In addition, we were fortunate to have Jim McSween, who is the chief of the York Regional Police and also the president of the Association of Chiefs of Police across the province of Ontario. It proved to be a wonderful opportunity for the participants to Q&A with our police, our Solicitor General, who oversees all the policing in the province, and our federal member who speaks in Ottawa on behalf of our community. We got great reviews off of that. We had a lot of wonderful feedback from everybody. And I think that, and Michael, I'd like your thoughts. I think that we had a wonderful opportunity to bring a comfort level to a community that is hurting, that doesn't know where the situation is going, as they reflect upon the past within their families and friends, and they look forward to the world that we're creating for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. I think that we really did a good job that night in allowing them a comfort level right now. If nothing else, although there hasn't been many arrests, we haven't had any real violent situations up here. We've been very fortunate, but the safety and security that has been provided primarily by our police has been stellar. It's very seldom do you drive by in the community, a synagogue, and don't see a police car parked there, an SUV parked there. You drive by a school, the command posts that have been set up in the community, they've all brought a real comfort level, I believe. There's still questions, there's still concerns. We don't know where this is going, but at least at this point in time, the temperature has been turned down a little bit in York Region. Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would completely agree with you, Aubrey. And in fact, that was mentioned to me several times during the course of that evening, that people felt precisely because of the high visibility of the YRP, that might be one of the reasons why we have seen so little hate on the streets in York Region, despite it being the fact that there's a tremendous amount of Jews living in that area, but we haven't seen what we've seen in other jurisdictions and some of the outlandish incidents against our community that we've witnessed in Montreal, the hate incitement at these rallies that we've seen in Toronto, but other incidents in Winnipeg and Vancouver, all the way across this country. So we've been fortunate, and it was really meant to be, as Aubrey mentioned, an anxiety dampening exercise, a place where people can get solid answers, speaking to the experts at the federal, provincial, and policing levels, and of course hearing from a community perspective at B'nai B'rith in terms of things that don't quite meet that criminal threshold, but still very much anti-Semitic, and where they could turn to help. And of course, that's through B'nai B'rith's anti-hate hotline and the app that anyone that's on this call or watching online, you can certainly are encouraged to download on the Apple Store or through the Google Play Store, because aside from going into our audit of anti-Semitic incidents, each and every victim of anti-Semitism is helped by the organization to the best of our ability. So we heard very positive feedback as well, and I think it was an important activity to take place.
We probably had about 125 citizens from York region there with us that evening, which was very, very good. We had no real protests, no problems. Michael, if you don't mind, what I'd like to also do is give a little bit of a mention to our next big project at the beginning of December and what we've been doing.
Sure, absolutely.
The commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police was in touch with myself and Rabbi Mendel Kaplan last year, and we set up for the first time in the history of the province of Ontario, we did a menorah lighting ceremony at OPP headquarters, and we had all levels of government and police there with us. We set up what we call Project Menorah, and we have been working diligently this last year. What we have accomplished is beyond belief. The commissioner, who has taken such an enormous leadership position, he's the former deputy chief of the York Regional Police. I had the good fortune, having been the co-chair of the advisory council to our police chief, to have worked with him when he was the deputy over intelligence, which covers off on terrorism, organized crime, etc. Tom Carrique is a brilliant policing person, very futuristic. And he decided what he would like to do this year is expand the project because of what is ongoing and get the message out to as broad a community as we possibly can. So what we're doing, we're having the main menorah lighting ceremony at OPP headquarters, but we are also doing it simultaneously at the 6 district headquarters right across the province of Ontario. Not only is it going to be streamed from headquarters, where we will have everybody from our consul general to our police chiefs, our solicitor general, the commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police, but we will also be broadcasting as we light the menorah simultaneously from headquarter to headquarter to headquarter to headquarter, right across the province, and then it'll come back to the main speeches that will be done by the inner circle that will be at the OPP headquarters to send a message out to the people of the province of Ontario in all of the diverse multicultural communities that are reflective of the new face of Canada, that our community is fortunate to have the total, unquestionable support of our Ontario Provincial Police, our police at the highest level, the Solicitor General, who oversees all of our police, including the provincial police and all of the municipal police. And as we continue to grow this forward, we will have the good fortune to be able to work with our police in Hamilton. We'll work with our police in London, Ontario. We'll work with our police in all of the different centers across the province. But the great part about Ontario, just in closure, is that not only do they support our community in that way, but our police are really reflective of the diversity of the province of Ontario and the new face of Canada. And this is the type of treatment that is offered to all of the communities. You know, in a world where an attack on one is an attack on all, and they do stand up for us, they bring us that comfort level, and it'll be a pleasure this year to have Michael Mostyn joining us as the CEO of B'nai B'rith Canada at the OPP headquarters, along with our commissioner, the consul general, and the others that were mentioned, as we light the menorah simultaneously across Ontario. That's it, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Aubrey, for that. Do you want to go straight into introductions, and we'll take her away?
Let me start it. Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, special guests, and welcome to the B'nai B'rith Canada monthly Fireside Zoom chat, which will be hosted this evening by Michael Mostyn, our CEO at B'nai B'rith Canada. I'm Aubrey Zeidenberg, a volunteer with B'nai B'rith for over 30 years, a vice president of B'nai B'rith International, and a founder of and national chair of the Special Advisory Council to the League for Human Rights, which we began working with the diverse communities under the umbrella of B'nai B'rith in 2004. These monthly events are part of a series done in conjunction with the League for Human Rights, which is comprised of over 35 committed liaisons to the diverse multicultural communities, the collective minorities, the new majority, and again, are reflective of the new face of Canada. This advisory council is now in its 20th year and brings together community leaders under the umbrella of B'nai B'rith in an unbreakable friendship as friends of the family we choose for ourselves. For the last 9 years, I've also been the co-chair with the head of intelligence and organized crime of the York Regional Police Chiefs Community Advisory Council, ISCAC. We are fortunate to have as members of the B'nai B'rith Advisory Council numerous senior police officers from YRP. Our Integrated Strategic Community Advisory Council deals with organized crime, terrorism, guns and gangs, drugs, vice, and human trafficking. 8 members of our B'nai B'rith Canada Human Rights Advisory Council are now also member of the Police Chiefs Diverse ISCAC project. Impressive past guests on our Zoom calls have been Jason Kenney, national political leader, Diane Francis, well-known Canadian journalist, CIBC World President Victor Dodig, Pierre Poilievre, the new leader of the Federal Conservative Party, our York Regional Police Chief, as well as the Toronto Police Chiefs, the Commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police, former Premier of the Province of Ontario, Ernie Eves, National First Nation Attorney, Delia Opekakew, One Free World International founder, Majid Al-Shafi, our Ontario Solicitor General, our retired Canadian Senator, Jerry Grafstein, and the Consul General of Israel. This evening, we're going to do a fireside chat format. It will last for 45 minutes in a presentation format. So if everyone would please take a moment, those of you who are on Zoom, and put your devices on mute, and we will continue as I'm going to now introduce our special guest for this evening. Currently president of the International March of the Living, Phyllis Heideman has a lifelong history of activism. She's proud to have served as a presidential appointee to the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. She has been annually active in Jewish life since her teens through leadership roles in B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, B'nai B'rith International, Israeli Bonds, the Board of Jewish Education. She has also held positions on the board of George Washington University Hillel, B'nai B'rith International Board of Governors, chair of the B'nai B'rith National Women's Museum in Washington, as a delegate of the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency for Israel, and on numerous boards, including those of Hadassah, Israel Bonds, and the Chosen Children Adoption Services. She presently is co-chair of the Israel Forever Foundation, trustee of the B'nai B'rith World Center in Jerusalem, on the Republican Jewish Coalition Board of Directors, and committee member and major donor at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. She served on the B'nai B'rith NGO delegation in 1985, the United Nations World Conference on Women in Nairobi, and again in 2001 as a delegate of the UN World Conference Against Antisemitism in Durban. Phyllis is committed to Holocaust education, the Jewish people, the state of Israel, and knows no limits. She works tirelessly to ensure the preservation of our heritage, the memory of our past, and the protection of our future. Ladies and gentlemen, Phyllis Heideman. Michael?
Thank you,
Great.
Aubrey.
Yeah, thank you, Aubrey. Thank you so much. And it's great to see you, Phyllis.
Good to see you.
And you know, we were just mentioning just before, these are very difficult circumstances for all of us right now, but we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening.
I thank you for inviting me. I thank you for including me, and I thank our dear family, our cousins, Aubrey and Deborah Zeidenberg, for carrying the torch in Canada, as Richard and I try to do here in the United States. And just from Aubrey's recitation of my life, you can see that B'nai B'rith is a major part of our life. Richard and I met in B'nai B'rith when we were 15 years old, and we have been at it ever since. It's, in my mind, one of the most important organizations on the planet, in anyone's world, not just the Jewish world. And for that alone, I'm moved, even more than honored. I'm emotionally moved to be a part of this conversation, and I thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you this evening, and of course, we all have a shared love for the entire B'nai B'rith family in Canada and around the world. Now,
Yes.
so you've been actively involved, Aubrey was mentioned before, with the International March of the Living for some time now, and you serve as the organization's president. Under your leadership, thousands of people from around the world have been given the chance to go to Poland alongside Holocaust survivors to learn more about the Holocaust and the atrocities that took place there, and have come to bring that knowledge home to their communities. How has your time with the March of the Living impacted your relationship with your own Jewish heritage? What lessons have you learned from the Holocaust survivors that you've worked alongside with? And what does the message of never again mean to you, particularly today?
Prior to October 6th, October 7th, I would have had a different answer for you, Michael. I would have had a different analysis and attraction to the words never again. Today, in the aftermath of this horrific assault on our people, an assault that I believe is a continuum, a continuity of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, all those many years ago, I would have to say that those words, never again, were well meant by our forefathers who echoed them, who stated them, and who we have echoed all these years. Today, I fear that we cannot tell the next generation, we cannot use that expression on a daily basis, never again, because here we are, and it is happening again. It's happening in real time in our lives. Not that we ever thought this would happen. I am 76 years old. I have been at this for a very, very long time. My mother is from, she would say Palestine, I'll say Israel. She is from Tel Aviv, and I was raised on this story. I was raised on ancestors, relatives coming from a place called the Old Country, and usurping my bedroom, and I ended up on a sofa in a family room so they could have our bedroom. So I've been at this for a very long time. And I think that we, with all our hearts, with our full neshama, believe that if we said enough, never again, never again, never again. We would not have to subject those survivors still alive today to what they're going through now. The survivors amongst us from the Holocaust are suffering on such a deep level. The parallel is not one that I can take to my chest, but it certainly is for them a dark, dark day to know that the atrocities being inflicted on our people, we here in the United States are facing rampant national anti-Semitism on a level that we thought, because of all that we had done, all of you on this program, and many of my colleagues have, we thought if we worked so hard all these years, we would combat, we would put away anti-Semitism. But Elie Wiesel was right. Elie Wiesel was right when he told me, when he told the world, but he even told me personally, we thought, we prayed, we hoped, we believed that anti-Semitism died in Auschwitz, and anti-Semitism did not die in Auschwitz. The victims died in Auschwitz. And I think what we're seeing today is clearly makes him even more of a prophet than most of us have held him up to be. He had the foresight to know that. As General Eisenhower, who, when he liberated Ohrdruf, had the foresight to say to the American soldiers, photograph everything, film everything, document everything, because there will come a day when naysayers, when non-believers, when deniers will come and say, this never happened, and we see it with our eyes. So I think that how has this impacted my life, the March of the Living? I want to tell you that the March of the Living family from 50 countries around the globe is a tight-knit group. Even when we don't know each other, we feel close to each other because our belief that we must educate every next generation on the past, because that past, as dark as it is part of the Jewish story. And it is part of what makes us who we are today. Being involved with the March of the Living since 2005 has done, there are no words to tell you how it has reinforced my belief in the need for each one of us to stand strong, to speak out, to remember the past, to, on the neshama side, yes, to give dignity to the memory of the victims, so they should not have died in vain, to remember them and to go each year and pay tribute to them, to light candles in their memory, because no one knows who's doing so. And I believe that those who are permanently living in Auschwitz-Birkenau, they are waiting for us every year to come. They know that we're coming on Yom HaShoah, and that is one of the driving forces that keeps our mission alive. What it's done, what being involved in the March of the Living has done for each of us is understand the need to educate. It is lack of knowledge that leads to and promotes and accepts anti-Semitism. And we see it today in the Simchat Torah war. We see that it is a lack of intelligence that's driving this train, a lack of understanding of history, a lack of understanding of who the Jewish people are, why we are, and that we're still here and we're not going anywhere. Better than Hamas for generations, for thousands of years, have tried to destroy us, finish us, annihilate us, and wipe our memory even off the history books. We didn't let them, and we're not going to let Hamas. However, I think that on the 2024 March may be the very first time that we won't be chanting all the time, never again. Because at some point, to the educated high school students that we bring, college students that we bring, young professionals and adults, one can only say, how can you say never again? We're living it. We're living it today. So it's impacted my life to make me stronger, more tired, I can assure you, stronger and more determined to do all that we can do to provide a better, protect a better future, to provide a fairer life for our children and our grandchildren. They deserve it. They deserve it. And it's incumbent upon each of us in the adult realms, the adult alumni of the march, to do all that we can. Tired is in our vocabulary these last 39 days. There's no time for tired. Maybe after the war, there'll be some time for tired, but we have to win this thing. We have to win it. We have no choice. And we are living in real time where it was very easy during the Holocaust for people to say, I didn't know. Well, it's impossible to say that today. So we're going to carry the message of the survivors of the past to the survivors of today, to the victims of the Shoah, to the victims of Kfar Saba, Be'eri, Sderot, Kiryat Shmona, whatever the place is, and say that we have a commonality because we are one people, we are one family, and our history is bound. So those are survivors from the Shoah and our survivors from this Simchat Torah war on October 7th. We'll just continue to renew the spirit and our need to roll up our sleeves and call upon every fiber of our person and our creativity to, I won't say never again, but to recognize that vigilance. Aubrey's well aware with all his work with law enforcement, and we at the March work closely with law enforcement from around the world. We just have to work together. We just have to work together because in Brera, we have no place else to go, and we have no choice. We have no choice but to preserve for the kids. They deserve it. They deserve it.
Absolutely. Well said. And unfortunately, there are less and less Holocaust survivors left to share their testimonies with the world. I know that's how you did your missions before, and that's how a lot of our Holocaust education has been taking place across North America and the whole world. But Holocaust education is going to need to change and adapt for the next generation. How do we amplify the message, and the hope of never again, so that the memories of the Holocaust don't fade away? I mean, you spoke very eloquently. I mean, history repeats itself. So how are we going to stop history from repeating itself here?
Well, we are working on many different platforms, some which are extraordinarily new to me and probably at my age a little bit strange, but we are doing projects with the Shoah Foundation, with Meta, formerly Facebook, to bring AI, artificial intelligence, to bring what we call the I Walk. We take survivors in their lifetime, the last 4 years. We've been doing it 5 years, to the place, to the barracks, to the grounds, to the shtetls and the villages, and we film them on site. We're doing holograms so that you have conversations with those even who have passed through the use of all this new technology and greater minds and greater educators than even I are working diligently to preserve in a live way, not just in reading, because you can read and read and read and read and read. It's not the same as hearing it from the voice or in the vernacular of a survivor who will talk about a day in the life. And so we are doing many levels of different kinds of filming, kinds of preservation, kinds of documentation that will live past the last survivor and tell their story. We are educating educators around the globe, young people. At some point in every one of our children's lives, they don't want to hear from a white-haired woman. They want to hear from one of their contemporaries. Why? Why should I be a part of B'nai B'rith? Why should I be a part of any organized structure to preserve better when, look, it's not, it's hopeless. So it's our job to tell them, no, it's not hopeless. It takes every single one of us to come together and deliver the message that the past is meeting the present is meeting the past. And in order to ensure that, do all we can to ensure that this never happens again, we have to just remain vigilant, educating everyone. I can tell you that in 2020 and in 2021, during as a result of the global pandemic, we were not able to march in Auschwitz, in Poland. It was devastating for us. In 21, in 20, in record time, we knew we couldn't go. Planes weren't going, nobody was going. It was all locked down. Poland itself was locked down. What we did was we became virtual, like this, bringing the message to millions of people around the globe who were never going to come to Poland anyway, many of whom in countries that were surprising to us, never heard of the word Holocaust. They didn't know what it meant. They never mind that, you know, to use a capital H, they didn't know who Jewish people were. But because of the ability to log on, to either register or log on or find your way to a webinar, to a fireside chat with great minds, with the chief rabbis of Israel, with the Michael Berenbaum educators of the world, with young people who have experienced anti-Semitism, and have them have these kinds of discussions, giving them even more fortitude to fight the fight, to understand they're not alone in the fight. At the University of Ottawa, they're not alone in the fight. They're not alone in the fight at Cornell or at Columbia, that they're surrounded by a world of people, all in this enigma called the Jewish people, their family, their extended family, and to people to whom they can reach. In addition to reaching the Jewish people, the Jewish students, the Jewish, even the elderly who don't know what to do, what to say when they're called occupiers and they're called this and that and the other, it's our job to embrace the general population in countries around the world. And so we did that. So even the advent and the overnight creation of webinars to reach people who we never would have reached before. That is another way. We had many, and we've recorded all the survivors, every survivor that we can get our hands on that is who is willing to talk, even if it's in broken English or in Hungarian, Romanian, French, Polish, Spanish. We will get it translated. We will have subtitles, and we will get your story out there, and we will save it for posterity, much like the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum does, your museum in Toronto and Houston, all the places that have documentation centers where we are preserving the evidence to protect the future. So we're being as creative as we can be. And I seem to find that every day somebody has another plan, another program, another creative, I don't even know the word, platform that is being used to educate. And I think that's the bottom line, is to educate and enlighten. If we do that, then we can engage other people, new people, into our cause of memory, dignity, legacy, and education. And I think that we're finding that out, that since October 7th, there's been even a rude awakening, and I do mean rude, a shocking awakening of many of our own people who were not involved before, didn't see a need, didn't feel the calling. But after October 7th, there are droves of Jewish people who say, okay, now I get it. Now I have to have voice. So our goal at the march is to give voice to those who no longer have voice, and we do that through our own selves and those we educate in classes around the globe, in cities. And well, you know, in Canada, Toronto has incredible education. In Ottawa, you educate the students for 2 or 3 months before they come on the march, so that they're not totally shocked or not arriving in any kind of innocent capacity, but some understanding of really life in Poland before the Shoah, life during the Shoah, and the continuing life now. So we're being as creative as we can and racking our brains to do all we can for the victims.
Mm-hmm. And changing the subject slightly, Aubrey had mentioned earlier, you were an NGO delegate at the UN World Conference Against Racism in Durban, and that was some 20 years ago. And I'm not sure that everyone who's watching on Zoom and the over 120 people watching on YouTube right now are familiar with exactly what took place. A conference against racism that turned into a conference that was promoting racism. How has the dialogue that surrounding Zionism at Durban impacted your perspectives about anti-Semitism, and and how relevant was what you experienced that 20 or so years ago till today? Because I think you're absolutely right when you just mentioned the world is waking up and we're seeing something, an unmasking of Jew hatred and an anti-Zionist manifestation of anti-Semitism that is shocking to those who haven't been paying attention, but I know you have. So please, can you share that with us?
I'll take a step back and I'll say this. Had it not been that while we were in Durban, 9/11 happened here in the United States. I believe that the wake-up call came in Durban. I believe that we would have taken a greater stand to fight anti-Semitism, to bring the discussion to the forefront of the global narrative, to bring a greater understanding of what it was that we faced in Durban, because it was merciless. It was painful. It was constant. It was a continuum of what we had in Copenhagen and in Nairobi since 1985. So, but because Durban, we were stranded actually in South Africa for almost a week till we could get home because of the 9/11 attack on the United States, we had no standing to bring the anti-Semitism we faced to the forefront. How would it would have fallen on deaf ears. We were struggling for our own identity in this country. What happened to us? How did this happen to us? And where do we go from here? Plus the reparations and the lives lost. And so, but I think that those of us who have been at this for a very long time are well aware that it's not new. It's not new. And we've had opportunities in the past to speak up. We've had opportunities that said to us, the environment is unhealthy. The environment is against you. In the aftermath of Durban, we had no ability to have a voice. We had no ability to start crying anti-Semitism when it was anti-American, it was anti-humanity, it was we were stranded in South Africa for days until we could get out. And the anti-human sentiment was unbelievable. The celebrations of what happened to the great United States were so frightening and distasteful and wearisome. What I learned in Durban, I had my eyes reopened again, because like everyone else, we become mildly, not necessarily in denial, but in complacent in our comfortable lives, in what we perceive to be our comfortable lives. But in Durban, I saw from one organization to the next, organizations that we've contributed to over the years, organizations who fly their flag that they are, human rights fighters and lovers of humanity, women's rights and children's rights. And I saw how anti-Semitic they were. We didn't count. We weren't amongst those people. They wanted to help. They were cheering when I was beaten up by a member of the PLO. Under the leadership of, we were leaders of the Jewish delegation. Imagine being a few hundred against several thousand, but so we've been at this a long time. Under the leadership of Maureen Reagan, Oliver Shalom, the daughter of President Reagan, also he should rest in peace. We walked out. We walked out of this session, because this conference, because it was not about what it was supposed to be. It was the diabolical opposite. It was a hate-filled room. Every session you went to, even the general plenary, was hateful against who? The Jewish people. Just hateful. And so I learned then, okay, so we have to be careful to whom we contribute. We have to become very careful to whom we speak, how we speak to them, and how we relay their message, forward their messaging on. I don't know that we do that. I think after October 7th, we've learned a great deal even about organizations in today's world, who give lots of good lip service when they're asking for money, when they're raising money on the backs of Jewish organizations, Jewish businesses, Jewish institutions. And now we see that not so much are they on our side. It's hard. It's not easy to wake up in the morning and know that some of those people you thought were your real friends and would stand by the state of Israel are not doing so. But not only are they not standing together with the Jewish people, okay, let's put that aside. Not only are they not standing with Israel, they are standing on behalf of barbaric, brutal. There are no words. I have no words anymore. I don't even know what to call it. Assault, barbarism, brutality, murder. We need new words to describe the horrific details that I'm sure everyone on this program has seen or heard in 2023, in the age of enlightenment. Anti-Semitism doesn't shock me, but the depths of depravity that we are having to face, and those people standing with them, is something that could debilitate us. They hope it will debilitate us and send us away. Instead, they're just going to embolden us like we were 300,000 people, 250,000 people online. That's a lot of people standing with Israel on Tuesday, the 14th. 300,000 people. It was a sight to behold. Richard and I have lived in Washington for a long time, for like 30 years. And I can tell you, we've never seen anything like it. Peaceful, calm, respectful. The law enforcement they have told us, we were helping them. We were giving them bottles of water. They put on our bracelets that said Am Echad, Israel, yours, mine, ours. We brought them water. They helped us, and they told us to an officer, they told us that they have a lifetime of thank yous, more than some of them told me in 30 years they've been on the force. They never had so many people just say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We really appreciate you. We need you, but we're glad that you're here, and we thank you. The other side of that, I hope that the world sees, is that yesterday there was a very small rally, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel rally of maybe 100 people, and there is arrests and assaults and devastation in the city, destruction and chaos. And I spoke to one of the chiefs of police here, who said never saw anything like it. 300,000 people, not an incident. 100 people having their way with the city, with the protection, and assaulting even police officers. So I think that it all boils down to maybe 3 or 4 words: a sad and saddening awakening that we have to stand together strong, because we know who we are. We're all we can count on, and we have no other choice. We have no choice, because I don't know, if we don't band together and stand together, then I'll be really sad and depressed about the future. But when I saw 300,000 people gathered in the spirit of Am Yisrael Chai, it was, and young people from colleges, young people from universities, where they have an onslaught every day. They are assaulted and attacked by the other side, afraid to go to class, some of them, but they all flew to Washington, train, buses, planes. The city was a gridlock. the Jews came to town, and thank God that they did. So the young people give me hope. The young people give me hope. They're not going to, they have been taught by their surviving grandparents, by their parents, I hope, who are still activists, that got to stand up and be counted. Do all you can do, because you want to wake up the next morning of every day and say, I wasn't silent. I took a stand. I tried to make a difference. And that's really all that we can do, is all that we can do. And we all have to do what we can do when we can do it, because who knows when we cannot do it any longer. But as long as we're able, the March of the Living teaches all our, especially the high school and college students, to accept their social responsibility, their communal responsibility, to do everything within their power to protect a better life for everyone, not just the Jewish people, but all mankind.
Yeah, and I think all of us have seen, if not video, photos of what took place in Washington, and it was really incredible. And I think no matter what city, because we're attending this, nationally, cities all the way across the country, I think we've also experienced very peaceful pro-Israel rallies, regardless of the size that it might be in that particular city. But we've also seen hate marches down the street with incitement against Jews, genocidal slogans like "From the River to the Sea," terrorist iconography, and that makes me reflect back again to the experience that you and the other delegates had going back to Durban with that awful anti-Semitic slogan that Zionism is racism. Shockingly, and perhaps we shouldn't be shocked, at a UN conference, and of course you're talking about donors, it's not just sometimes charities, sometimes it's also nation states and who they are funding. But how do we counteract the messages that we saw, like in Durban, like those nasty messages which seem to correlate quite tightly with other acts of unlawfulness and illegality, like vandalism and trespass and boycott and intimidation? So especially as those voices have begun to creep into the political mainstream across North America, in light of the heightened criticism of Israel and its actions to the present conflict, how do we counteract this?
Why wouldn't I be a success if I had that answer? I think we do. I will say one thing, Michael, it didn't start in Durban either. It started in Nairobi years before, in 1985. It's a lifetime ago. And in Nairobi was perhaps even more hate-filled than Durban, although Durban was no picnic. But the hate there, the unabashed, they shut the mics off when it was our turn to speak. They just pulled the plugs. We didn't know we're talking, and people are saying we can't hear you. They shut the mics off. They threw things at us. They barely missed me with a chair. All I was doing was talking about life and preservation of life on the West Bank, and they called it genocide on the West Bank and threw a bridge chair at me. So we have been fighting this fight forever, not just in my lifetime, maybe forever, but certainly since in our lifetime. How do we counteract it? We never give up. We just keep being creative, keep being diligent, vigilant, and maybe even expand our own knowledge, our own ability, and how to reach. We're teaching Holocaust education totally different than we ever did when the March of the Living started in 1988. Then it was, those poor kids, they had to come with binders and with books and with diaries to write in. Now everybody, takes their iPhone and everything is on the iPhone, and it's much different than it was back then. And we've had to loosen the reins on the kids. Because in the early days of the march, you couldn't bring anything, a recording device. You weren't allowed, because that's all they did was listen to music while they were trying to be educated. Now you cannot say you can't have your iPhones. So I think that the only answer is to keep doing what we're doing, but doing it better, doing it better. I think that we have made mistakes in the past in our educational outreaches and the perhaps the message. Maybe we didn't teach enough of this or too much of that. But whatever it is that we did, I cannot imagine where the position the Jewish nation would be if we hadn't done everything we did every day, 5 days a week for the last 80 years, 90 years. Education. I think we have to overcome our fear to speak. I think we have to. The other side is certainly not outspoken, not afraid to be outspoken. They certainly are not afraid to say whatever they want. And I'm very impressed when young college students from wherever they're from, Michigan, have posters and banners that say, "From the river to the sea, this is all you'll see," and it has an Israeli flag. So I think that we have to understand there's no, the despicable human being, the hateful Adolf Hitler understood. There was no separation and no division between the Jewish people. To his mind, he didn't care if you never went to a synagogue, always went to a synagogue, what stream of Judaism you came from, or if you were Jewish at the moment. I think that we have to come to that. I think we have to get over organizational boundaries and turfdom, territorialism, and work together and just say we just have to keep going. It's not easy. It's harder every day. Every day you wake up in the morning and it's harder, but we have, again, no choice. It's our responsibility to the past, it's our responsibility to the present, and it surely is our responsibility to the future. And I think that for me, I can say, I do not consider it a burden. It's a privilege to be able to do what we can do, and it's a blessing to have the wherewithal to do what we can do. It would have been it was very easy for a lot of the local residents around here. We're so used to these marches and so used to the downtown being overtaken. Many people from locally did not come, women my age, older people, and not letting their little children out of fear. We've had enough marches here and enough trouble and enough shootings and enough assaults that they just didn't go. And that's sad. We have to rise above our own personal flesh and say we're protecting not just ourselves, not just our grandchildren, but everyone's self, every Jewish child, every Jewish grandchild, and I dare say the Jewish future. So is it a burden? It should be, but it's not. It's a privilege to be able to be a part of the solution. And it makes it easier to look in the mirror in the morning.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, Phyllis, what does the state of Israel, you've touched on this a little bit. We know what it means to the Jewish people. What does it mean to you? What are your hopes for the country going forward? And what do you think the biggest dangers are to Israel today? And your answer might also be a little bit different after October 7th than if we had this call a little bit earlier.
Well, I think that each of us wants so much to be a part of the society, wherever it is that we live. I shudder to use the word denial because Holocaust denial is against everything I believe in. But we live in a state of, maybe it's complacency or want to really be American or Canadian or British. And they're suffering terribly in London or Argentine. We want to be like everyone else. We want the world to accept us as Jewish Americans. Many say American Jews. In my world, I'm a Jewish American. I would be Jewish wherever I was. I think that my hope for the future, my dream would be to get some sleep at night, to begin to believe that there are more good people than bad people, that I can tell my grandchildren good will win out over evil. Not everyone is bad. I have 9-year-old twins here in Bethesda who ask me, why does everyone hate the Jews? Grandma, why does everyone hate us so much? There is no answer, Michael, for that. There's no universal answer. Everybody's got their own reason, but they'll all agree to hate us for whatever their reason. I would like to believe that after October 7th, we could, should, and hopefully will come together without the turfdom, without the infighting, without the demonstrations against this and for this and because of this and why this, and just say, we have so much, we've given the world so much, we have so much to offer, and we have to come together as a people, not as this stream of Judaism or this organization, and don't take my donors and stay off my membership list. Just come together and get along ourselves better. I know we were very concerned about making peace with Saudi Arabia during 39 weeks of protests against the government in Israel. So I wonder why I hope that we will now work on our inner selves, our own community, and help us get along better and get along with, we'll never have one voice because we all have different ideals. We're all different people, but the goal is the same. The goal is all the same. The goal is survival. It's something I thrive on, I'm working on every day. Survivors, we all want to be survivors. And in 100 years from now, yes, the face of the Jewish people, I'm sure, will be different, not just because of October 7th. It'll be different than it is today because the world will be different than it is today. But the world will still need a strong, vibrant, committed Jewish community worldwide. And, you know, you and I lived in countries where the B'nai B'rith isn't our only lifeline to survival. But there are countries around the world who, without B'nai B'rith, without other Jewish organizations protecting them, without the fear that the outside community has about the power of the B'nai B'rith, you know, they really, they need us to be together, and so that we all feel part of this global power. It's a power. And if we would get over ourselves, as I say, if we would get over our organizational jealousies and just cross those boundaries and say, we really are all in this for one goal. We have one God, we have one goal. Let's work on it together. So that would be my dream. It's a dream. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think that October 7th may be a serious awakening. We weren't prepared. Nobody was prepared. Nobody in the world, nobody in the Jewish world, nobody in the secular world was prepared for this. Nobody anticipated anything of such a magnitude. And we in our law firm are fighting Hamas in the courts around the world for 19 years. And even we, not surprising that it happened, surprised the magnitude, the organization, the execution of it was something to behold. And we have to be a lot more aware, a lot more, maybe it's time to stop everyone living the good life and take some of that time we devote to the good life and devote it to vigilance, and help law enforcement help us. We didn't do that for a while. We got very lazy about it. We got very, I say complacent. We got very happy with our lives, and we're strong, and we have the best army, and we have the best motivations, and our goals are the best, our contributions to society are the best, so all's right with the world. And I guess we've learned not so much. So we have to reawaken that spirit that took us in 1948, 1967, 1973. I mean, we've had experience with rebuilding. This time it has to be with a greater commitment to the future.
Mm. And I mean, that's a lot. You're discussing a lot within the Jewish world, all the way around the world. But how do we convince and continue convincing non-Jews about the fact that Israel's cause is worth fighting for, especially the younger generation? You know, this younger generation, the ones that are bringing those cell phones nowadays to Poland on those trips. The younger demographic, there are those amongst them. It's not everybody, but there are significant segments that have become alienated. There's misinformation, disinformation, there's social media, and by Israel and what is taking place right now. So how do we meet that challenge?
I don't think that we've done a good job education. Historical fact, historical truth and veracity about the past, not just the Holocaust, about the past 2,000 years. Nobody wants to study 2,000 years ago. How about the past 100 years? How about the past 120 years? I could go back to Herzl. I could go back to the Balfour Declaration. I think that we're not educated. Our students are so concerned with defending every other community except our own. They're right there for everybody else, for Black Lives Matter, for LGBTQ, for everybody else. What about our own? And where is the disconnect between the Jewish community needing its Jewish young to, if not defend, at least be a part of, understand history, understand that we have no choice. Michael, it's been a long 39 days, but I think that if we do a real introspection, perhaps we have to reevaluate how we educate and what we educate our young people about, and not be afraid to do so. We want so much to be do-gooders and worry about tikkun olam. I don't know that when we taught our kids tikkun olam, that we ever instilled in them that tikkun olam includes our olam. It includes our world. It includes the state of Israel. It includes every Jew in every country around the globe. We worried a great deal about tikkun olam, repairing the world and helping everyone. We're not enough people to help everyone. We have to start with ourselves. And I was always taught by my parents that you seldom can change someone else, but you can also change yourself. So I think we have to look at ourselves and say, what do we have to do to update this message, make this message relevant to today's, I won't say kid, to today's next generation, such that they will embrace the message we should be delivering. And that is tikkun olam begins at home.
Yeah.
Can we change the world? I don't know. It seems to be as my 9-year-old sons tell me, it seems that everybody hates us. Can we change everyone? No. Can we do this one person at a time? No, but maybe we can do this one community at a time and fix the present for the future.
Yeah, well, that certainly is a message of hope. This is all a challenge, right? This is a big issue, but it has to be done. It has to be done with hope, right? Exactly. But I like what you said. It's about telling the truth too. It's about truth to power, and not just going along with with the way things are going, or fitting into, feeling the need to fit in. That has to be the way forward, doesn't it? Teaching, but it's not just teaching, it's the truth, the history. What is taking place then and what is taking place now, and having backbone and spine to do what is right. Isn't that a part of this?
It's a part of it. And I believe that we have to know where we've been, where we are now, and where we want to go in order to know where we want to go in the future. We have to understand we didn't drop it from the sky. We're not newcomers to society, and we have to stand proud in all that we've given the world. Why are we so reticent to talk about how this little 1/10 or whatever it is % of the population on the globe has made such incredible strides and contributions for the good, and our desire for good to win out over evil. It was very easy during the Shoah, I suppose, because there was a clear cut. The Nazi regime was bad, we were good. That didn't work either, but to convince the rest of the world. But I think that if we have to have a clear vision, we have to have an understanding where we came from. We have to understand what we're doing now, what position are we in now, and how are we going to enhance that position. Remember the days after, I don't know who's old enough, the days after the 6 Days War. Oh man, it was great to be Jewish. I mean, we did this, look at us, we're the best. And everybody wanted to be Jewish in those days. People were coming out of the woodwork that they had Jewish roots. Not so much today, they're running away. So in order to embrace the young people and convince them to engage, we have to engage them in conversations like this, in conversations on their campus. They don't even know how to defend against the Palestinian charges of settlers and aggressors and this and occupiers and all the terrible things they call us, because they don't know history. They don't understand history. So is it too late to teach history? It's never too late. It's never too late to begin to enlighten people and to embrace them in such a way, on their level, in such a way to get them, their minds open, their hearts open, and hopefully their checkbooks open too, because that also makes the world turn. But I believe that if we would come together, we can do this. We can do this. We got this, as the young people say. We got this. It's going to be a long and very costly war. It's going to take a terrible toll on the Jewish people. It will change the fiber. It already has changed the fiber of society in Israel, maybe even here in North America. But we have to rise above the negatives, focus on the positives, and focus on, if we don't, who will? If not now, when? If not now, when?
Yeah, and you know what, and I think those are perhaps a great closing thought, because I see we're now past the 8 o'clock hour. I know time's flown by, but I want to thank you, first of all, before I turn it back over to Aubrey to conclude this evening. Thank you so much for sharing all of that wisdom with all of us. I think that perhaps we all will have hope in that next generation as we're going, because there's no choice. This has been going on, and it was not just 1985. This has been going back, we know, for 3,000 years, right? And yet, and probably every generation thought the same thing. I don't know how those next guys are going to handle it, because they're a little more soft than we are. But we always found the way, and we have to have hope that we always will continue to find that way, because there's no choice. We will find that way, and they will find their own voice and their way to carry on into the future. So, Phyllis, I just want to thank you once again on behalf of all of us here. It was just wonderful to have this opportunity. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Aubrey to close out the evening.
Thank you, Michael. If I could just let everyone know that Phyllis Heideman is one half of one of the most powerful Jewish families in America. Her partner in lifetime, is Richard Heideman, who is the past 2-term president of B'nai B'rith Worldwide. He's the former head of the American Zionist Association. And their law firm represents American victims of terrorism. They sue terrorist organizations, terrorist countries, and individual terrorists on behalf of American victims of terrorism. So, Phyllis, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Richard enough. The two of you together as a power couple for your determination, your dedication in advancing the causes that are so important, not just our people, but as it reflects upon the world in general. I'd like to also thank all of the attendees this evening for the time that you've taken out of your busy schedules to join us. We hope that you've absorbed some important information tonight that you can take forward to your communities, wherever it may be, wherever this live streaming may have taken you. And just a little reminder that December 14th, our next event, one of our members of the B'nai B'rith Advisory Council to the League for Human Rights has just returned from Israel. He was financed to do a documentary. He has interviewed the family members of those who lost their lives, the family members of those that have been taken hostage, as well as going with the IDF with the approval of the Israeli government in Israel and through our Consul General here. He has gone with the IDF to the front lines, and he is has interviewed and will continue on one more occasion to do interviews with the soldiers as to exactly what they have seen, exactly what they have experienced, and the awful, awful situations that are not being passed on to the world. So we look forward to that. Please attend on December 14th, and you're going to have one heck of an evening and an eye-opener from one of our B'nai B'rith Canada Special Advisory Council to League for Human Rights members. February, we will continue with a member from one of our diverse communities, Pastor Judith of the Revital Time Tabernacle Ministries. We have a number of other people as we get into the new year following. Phyllis, with the line "Never Again," maybe we could look at something like "We never give up."
Never give up.
We
That's
never
the
give
answer,
up.
Aubrey.
That may
That's
be a
the
good
answer.
line to work with. And
We
on
will
that,
never give up.
and on that, I'd like to thank everyone once again, and we look forward to seeing you in December. Have a great weekend.
Thank
Have a safe weekend. And on behalf of B'nai
Thank
B'rith
you.
Canada, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you,
Mike.
Aubrey.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Thanks. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you, Phyllis.